Hello and welcome to the WestA podcast. My name is DeAndra and this is Pastor Charles Blake.
Hello. It is so good to be here with all of you on today, and it is especially good to be here with you.
It's always a pleasure being with you too. I wanted us to get into a conversation to kind of recap where we were in our last episode. We talked about our transition down to this location, the 3600 Crenshaw location, from our previous North Campus location. It has always been Bishop's dream to have everything moved down here, our administrative offices, the Sunday school classes especially, so that everything can happen in one location.
Yes.
And since we last spoke to you, a lot has happened. The North Campus is no longer there. It has been completely demolished. And this building is almost done. I'd say in a few more months,
Yes, ma'am.
we should be moving into this location as well.
We're hoping to be in here by this year. They have been forecasting maybe mid to late fall, probably in the winter, but we are working as quickly as we can to bring all of this to fruition.
It's going to be so exciting to see people walking through the doors of this building and thinking about all of the transition that has happened. Change has been inevitable. And I love what you say about change and how people see change and experience change. What did you say?
That change is inevitable, but one thing that people hate more than anything else in life is change. And the only thing that they hate more than change is rapid change. But change is something that we have to get used to. Change is something that we just have to understand is going to be happening, whether we want to or want it to happen or not. When many of us joined West Angeles, or when many people joined West Angeles, it was a situation to where they joined after we built the cathedral, and they weren't there to hear Bishop express his vision that one day we would want to have all of our ministries and all of our functions here in one place and here at one site. So we were having Sunday school for the children down the street on 30th and Crenshaw, and people would be down here worshiping the Lord, and there would be parents that'll be worshiping the Lord down here, but they would always have one part of their mind on what's going on with their children. Our administrative offices were up the street, and we were just worshiping the Lord down here at the cathedral. And the building of this Family Life Center, as beautiful as it is the fruition of the vision that Bishop had when he wanted all of us to be able to be in the same place, and he wanted all of the functions to happen here. And there's so much more we could talk about that regarding change, but I'm going to give it back to you.
I remember when we were at the North Campus and how Bishop would often talk about our moving down here. Mm-hmm. Even when we moved to the cathedral location, that always stayed at the forefront of his mind.
Yes.
And he would often talk about it to us as a congregation, and we could see him almost trying to wrap his mind around how we could go about raising the funds to come down to this location and to start building this building so that we could. And we didn't know how it was going to happen. He was just praying about it, thinking about it, and all of those things. And then something very special happened in the midst of his praying. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was that caused us to be able to move down to this location and get started on this project?
Well, it was always Bishop's intention to one day be able to sell all of our property north of Jefferson. A lot of people don't realize that Bishop had been pastor of West Angeles for 53 years. 42 of those years, he's been pastoring right here on Crenshaw Boulevard. So if you think we built the North Campus in 1981, and then we finished the cathedral in 2001, which means 20 of those 42 years we were ministering in one place. And it's interesting, it goes back to how we love to be able to hold on to what it is that we're familiar with. With that, people were thinking that the North Campus, and when they thought of West Angeles, they think of where they were when they joined West Angeles. So they thought of West Angeles as being the North Campus. So when the Lord made it possible for us to sell the property of the North Campus and to sell that property north of Crenshaw and to be able to move everything down here, it was a great sense of loss that some folks had. And we've had to remind people that, listen, when we built the cathedral and when the Lord allowed us and enabled us and blessed us to be able to build the cathedral, this was always in the plan. And we were able to sell the North Campus property into a group of folks who were really trying to develop the area of Crenshaw and develop the Crenshaw corridor. And we've been here serving the people and serving the community all of this time. And we're going to still continue to be here. We're going to still continue to serve God's people and to uplift and inspire the people of this community and of this neighborhood. But we're now able to be in a better position to do what we've been continuing to do in this area for the past 42 years. We like to think, and it has been said and known, that West Angeles has been chiefly responsible for renovating and helping develop this area. If you all will remember how things were back in the early 80s before West Angeles got here, that it was a lot of blight. You know, the area was on a downward trajectory, but now us being here, you know, God has been able to do some wonderful things through the community. And it is such a blessing for me to be able to continue as pastor in that legacy and to continue moving forward.
What's so wonderful about the West Angeles church family is that we've always had a pioneer type of spirit. It has been so much growth that has occurred over the years in the life of West Angeles and all the people who are a part of it. We have very generous people who are a part of the West Angeles family who have always been behind the leadership to do what it is that he had in his heart and in his mind to do. So God's ways are not our ways, and neither are his thoughts like our thoughts. And so the way that God made this possible for us was something of his divine providence. It was something that we couldn't see coming. And as much as Bishop was praying about it and trusting God to do it, God did it in the way that he wanted to do it. And so, yes, in the midst of all of this change, and this change came in the middle of, or on the heels of, the pandemic, where everybody was already feeling like really down. People were losing their family members, losing their jobs. And so that was change that was occurring. And then this church that has been a part of the lives of the people, and it's in the hearts of the people, they raise their families there, is now looking at no longer being there, now being demolished. And though it's a great blessing that we are able to grow and to move down to this location, the hearts of the people are broken because of that church, that location being no more. But I always look at it like God is taking us forward, and without change, there can be no progress. And so I'm excited about the future of West Angeles and the future of the Family Life Center. When you think about what will happen in this building, what do you see as the pastor now of West Angeles?
Wow. Well, I guess I have to think about what you just said. Of two minds, and I am of two minds. When I do think about where God has brought us from, I pass by the North Campus, or what used to be the North Campus. Right now they have torn the building down, and I will have to admit that there was a bit of sadness inside. The way that one thinks about how they are no longer a child. The nostalgia that I look back on my early childhood, or when I was in my pre-teens, when there was so much that I was learning to deal with and learning to enjoy in life. I realize now that I am no longer a teenager, no longer a child. So a part of me kind of laments that. But as we move into the future, I realize that it all comes into being mindful of where God has you at in the moment. And when I think about where God has us, I can only know that He has so many beautiful things for us in the future. And while part of me still kind of laments, and I want to stay away from using the word mourn, because you mourn things that are dead and that have passed away. But this is just a transition. I passed by the house that I grew up in, and I didn't spend a lot of time crying there. I thought about it. I praised the Lord, and I was thankful for the moments that I had there as a child growing up. But I realized that God had someone else for me to go. And when I think about what God is going to be doing here in the Family Life Center, I am just still, I'm racked with humility, but at the same time, I am so excited and so exhilarated at what I know God is going to do here and what God is going to do through us and His people in the future. So like I said, while part of me looks at where I came from and I feel a little bit sad, I am more excited about where God is taking us. And while people were kind of feeling very sad about the North Campus, I had to remind them, just look, not more than 2 blocks up the street, we built a $61 million cathedral. And that was something that was beautiful. In fact, we've been worshiping the Lord here at the cathedral for a longer period of time than we were worshiping the Lord down there at the North Campus. It's just the fact that we were not fully finished with our project here and that we were still having our night services at the North Campus, that people still had that attachment to it. But the Lord is taking us to higher heights. And while I do feel very close and still feel very sentimentally attached to the North Campus as it was then, I have to realize that God has us in a different place now, and in a better place, and in a higher place. And it does kind of speak to what you were talking about how there is kind of a resistance to change. About when you look back at the way things were, even if you didn't always like them, there is a certain nostalgia that we will have for those times that passed. So it's all right for people to feel sad about what used to be, but you have to stay in the moment of where God has you. You have to stay mindful of what God is doing in your life today, or you might miss that opportunity.
Yes. As believers, as followers of Christ, as you know, God always has a higher place in Him He has for us to go. He has so much more He wants us to do. And that's what's so exciting about where we are in this building project. I look at all of the buildings that are being built up around the church, and I look at all of the condos, the residential buildings that are going to be built and that are being built. And I look at that like souls that could find their way into the church, souls that God wants to save. And so I'm excited about how God is orchestrating everything. And though everything might not happen the way we want it to happen, it might not happen at the speed we want it to happen. Like you said, a lot of times we don't like sudden change, but we do, as followers of Christ, have to follow what God is doing in us and through us at that particular time. The question is, can God trust us with what He has given us? And I would believe, yes, He can trust us as a church family, as those of you who are connected with West Angeles. And so I think it's a time to celebrate, not just that we are moving to this location, but celebrating the goodness of God and what He is doing through this ministry. I'm so excited to have you as our pastor. And I'm excited about what God has placed inside of you, the vision that He has given you as we move forward into the future. There's so much more that He would have us to do and to be. Is there anything that you have on your heart that you would like to share with the people regarding where you see us in the future?
Well, as we talk about where God is taking us, we do have to think about and deal with, at the core, how for the most part we kind of like the way things are. And when situations happen, such as a COVID or such as the epidemic as we were dealing with, a lot of folks were kind of just moved out of their place of comfort. But when God has tried to move his people to a different place, he did not do it with them and in their lives from a place of comfort, from a place of security or stability. Chaos, crisis has always been agents of change. You'll notice that when God was taking his people to a higher level, it was always in times of crisis or upheaval. But when things were comfortable and things were at a certain level of peace, God's people started getting laxed. So one thing that I can say is that all things happen for the good of those that love the Lord, to those who are called according to his purpose. And sometimes that crisis and chaos are the agents of change that God uses to bring his people to a higher level. That is why we are called to have faith. We like for things to be comfortable. We like for things to be predictable. And when things change and move, we don't necessarily like that. But it is kind of a delusion to think that things are going to stay the same. I've said before that the earth is traveling around the sun at more than 66,000 miles an hour. It is spinning at more than 1,000 miles an hour. So for us to think that we are where we are even a fraction of a second ago is not even accurate. We are always in the midst of change. God is always taking us to a place to where he wants us to be. So what does that mean for all of the change happening in our community and all of the change happening in this area? We did not know when the cathedral was built here that there was going to be a train station on Exposition in Crenshaw, that they were going to be setting a subway and a metro rail that will be able to take people from this area all the way to the ocean and all the way to the airport. We had no idea that this was going to be a major transportation hub. At the time when we were building the cathedral more than 23 years ago, we didn't know that there was going to be such a mass influx of people moving into the neighborhood and people building businesses around here. But God knew. And right now we are in a perfect position to capitalize and build and reach God's people and help West Angeles grow in a way that we could not have imagined. So if you get so locked into the past, you will miss the new opportunity that God is doing in your life right now. And that's a whole nother subject we can get into. The implications for West Angeles is we are now in a position to where God can enable us to reach more people and West Angeles can continue to grow. Again, I would love to remind everyone that we've been here in this community for the past 42 years, right here on Crenshaw. When the riots happened back in 1992, less than a year later, Bishop and Dr. Bolton started the West Angeles Community Development Corporation, and so many lives have been touched. So here at West Angeles, we have a legacy of wanting to be able to go outside of the walls to be able to touch God's people, to touch the community, and even bless the lives of those who might not ever even come on the grounds of West Angeles, because that's what God has called us to do. He called us to go ye therefore and proclaim the word and proclaim the love of the Lord and proclaim the gospel.
So when we look at what God has done and we can see just a little glimpse of where he is taking us, I can see, you can see that our future is bright, and we have to continue, like you said, to just have faith in God. Without our faith, it is impossible to please God, and we want to be people that please God, right? So as we move into the future, I am so excited to be standing next to you. I'm so excited, we are so excited that you are walking on this journey with us. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the WestA podcast, and we'll see you next time.